Today I'm going to show you how to knit. So, we're starting off with a 24 stitch row of just one purl. Okay, now there are two different ways that you can knit that I've learned. The first one is definitely easier, and the second one, well, they both look the same, but the second one is a little bit easier when trying to do increasing stitches. So say when you're doing a project where you need more stitches than when you started out, then you'll increase the stitches, and I will show you that in another video. But doing the second method will make increasing a lot easier. Okay, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So, the first method of knitting. So you grab the yarn, okay? So, the first way of knitting is you go through the back. See this? So through the back, wrap it around, and push off. So see what I was saying in the video about purling? It's pretty much the opposite. So you go through the back, wrap it around, pull it through, and then push the stitch off the needle. Okay? Now when you first start either knitting or purling, it's probably going to be very loose or extremely tight because you are still figuring out how you need to hold it. See, you got to be careful not to grab onto the stitch that you poked through. You've got to figure out how tight it needs to be for it to work for you. So don't be discouraged if it's really loose or if it's really tight, because you'll get there. Okay? Now, you see the pattern that it's making here? So this is called, if I remember correctly, a stockinette stitch, which basically just means that it's smooth. This would be considered the right side or the front side of the knitting. Now the back side, flip that around, looks like this. It's still kind of smooth, but you can see the more definition in the stitches. Okay, flip that back around, through the back, around, pull out. There we go. Sorry, my thumb gets in the way. Back, around. Back, around, pull, slip up. Back, around, pull, slip up. Around, pull, slip off. So, I'm pretty sure you're wondering, if this is called a stockinette stitch, where you do a row of purl, a row of knit, a row of purl, a row of knit, what happens when you do just all purling? Well, that will give you a piece that has ridges, is how I describe it. So both of them, whether you do two purl or two knit, they'll have sort of like a ridge thing, because when you do, hold on, let me finish this. Getting a little bit too excited here. Okay, one more. Alright, now all the stitches are on this side. Now, when you're knitting, you basically push the loops to the back side, which is why this side is more defined in all the stitches. But you have to flip the needle around every time you end a row so that this stays on the left needle. So if you say do knit again, that means you'll be pushing the loops to this side, which is the front side, which will leave you with sort of ridges. Now I have, if I can pull it out of my thingy, here we go. I have one that I already made. This is just completely knitting, see? So there are the ridges, and then in between them you can kind of see the front side. And it looks exactly the same on the back. And that's what happens when you do when you do rows of just knitting. Okay? So, I'm going to show you that while doing the other way you can knit. Okay. So, like I said, this stitch is a lot easier when you're doing an increase stitch, but we're not going to worry about that at the moment. So this way is kind of more like purling than the other one, which may sound strange at first. But basically, you take the first stitch and you go through the front, but instead of going this way, like purling, you go through that way. See? You still wrap it around, you still pull it through, but you go through the front instead of the back. Now, I don't know which one is right. The first one is the first one that I learned, and this one I figured out when trying to do increased stitches and going, why is this so hard? Either one is fine. In fact, when I have to do a lot of rows of just knitting or just purling, which some stuffed animals have you do, sometimes I'll alternate between the first and the second method so I can more easily keep track of which row I'm on. Because there's some stuffed animals where it's like, do 24 rows of knit. And if you go first method on odd ones and the second method on even ones, then it's easier to keep track of which row you're on, and then the pattern will turn out right. Okay. Now, this may be a little hard to see, but you notice that there's a slight indentation? See? So it kind of looks like the front in this little part right here. That's because all the loops are going to the back. So if you look on the back, you'll see that this ridge is forming. Okay? And that, see, is the thingy right here. So if you continue on with just doing knitting, you'll end up with these little things right here, these ridges. If you do another purl row after this, then it'll just look like, here's this, and then the back. So it'd kind of look like that almost. See? With the flat and then the ridges. So it's important to always keep track of which row you're on so you don't accidentally do some weird stuff. But anyway, that is how you do the other knit stitch. So I'm going to show you it a couple more times. Okay. Through this way, around, and pull through, around, pull through. And of course, you probably go very slow when you first start out. That's normal. I did that too. It took me so long to finish a row, and I was so shaky. I'm still kind of shaky now. I'm resting my hands currently on a thingy, so I can have my arms farther out from my body than I normally have it, so I can capture this on camera. But anyway, you'll get it, and of course you'll get faster. And I hope that you find it soothing, you know, because it's just repetition. And obviously when you're doing pattern stuff, you have to follow the directions, so that takes a little bit more brain power. But it's mindful in a way. And, well, I personally love to knit when I'm watching stuff. You see the end row? Sometimes it gets a little bit stuck, so you pull it. Okay, now, I will say that if you do the first method of knitting, you'll get this thingy right here, you see? That's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's going to be a little loose edge. If you do the second way, and then you say start a purl row, what ends up happening is that it will counteract that loopy thing, I guess you could call it, leaving you with a flatter edge. You see that? No loop. It's more neat, I guess you could say. But like I said, this loopy thing, it's fine. I don't mind it, especially when I'm making, like, say, a stuffed animal, because usually that's an edge that I have to sew. So it kind of gives me places where I can put the needle through so I can sew it together. But anyway, whichever one is fine. Right, and that is how you do the two different knits.